These days with the newborn have been amazing. Just getting to cuddle with her and sniff her gives me the biggest boost of oxytocin ever. I am loving this phase. I am loving getting to be a mom. But it does take up a lot of my time. So anything that I can do that helps me to just be more efficient and save time doing these weekly things like groceries and cooking, I've been trying to incorporate just so I have more time with her and less time spent doing these kinds of things, especially now in the beginning, because she is literally growing so fast and I'm already missing the first week, the second week. She has already gained so much weight. She is so smart and I just cannot deal with how fast she's growing. I'm really trying to soak up these days as much as possible because I can see just how fast they're going by. Everyone told me, be careful because once you blink, she will have grown up. And, you know, I always knew that yes, time does go by so fast, but I've never actually felt it go by this fast. Like, it's insane how fast babies grow and how fast she's growing out of her newborn clothing and her newborn diapers, and I really don't want to miss it. So although I love cooking and I love homemaking, I am trying to spend the great majority of my time with her, just cuddling and sniffing her and feeding her and looking into her eyes, because soon enough she's going to be crawling around and she's not going to want to just be lying in my arms the way she does now. So that's a big priority for me right now. So I've continued getting these grocery, veggie, and fruit box subscriptions every week. It's called Odd Bunch. If you are in Ontario, I'll link them below. So I've been getting the medium organic box and it's been great. I love that a lot of the things they send every week are things that I can use for juicing, because you don't get to choose what comes in these veggie boxes. It's whatever is in season, whatever they can get at a more affordable price. But they always send lots of greens and apples and celery, ginger, limes, all things I love to use to make green juice. So here I'm using some stuff that came in the last box that I hadn't used up yet, plus some of the stuff that came in this box to make us some green juice. I love this one. I put celery, apple, ginger, lime. Sometimes I'll add pineapple to add a little bit of extra sweetness, and then some kind of green, usually kale is my go-to. And I love serving it over ice. It's so refreshing and we both absolutely love it. It's a tart and tangy. It always hits the spot. So Daddy held her while I was making us some juice, and she started showing that she was hungry. So after I made the juice, I sat down and fed her, and that's basically how my day goes. I'll stop for a little bit and do a little bit of something, but then I'm always taking breaks to hold her and feed her, because feeding takes a long time. They feed on both sides. You have to stop to burp and then stop for a diaper change, and then sometimes they fall asleep and then they wake up and then you're feeding again. And by the time that's all done, it's only like an hour and a half until they're hungry again, because I'm feeding about every 3 hours from the beginning of one feed to the beginning of the next feed. So it really doesn't leave that much time. But in the little times where she is sleeping on her own or with Daddy, I'm trying to get things done around the house and doing some cooking, cleaning. So here I'm getting started on dinner. So tonight I wanted to make meatballs. So this was an inspiration from a recipe I had gotten in the HelloFresh box a few weeks ago. and it's Swedish meatballs, so I was craving that again. So I kept it pretty classic: onions, seasoned breadcrumbs, eggs, salt and pepper. But then I added a little bit of dried dill, and I feel like that is what made it a little bit different, and it's gonna go in a really nice cream sauce. I started eating red meat again after 8 years of not eating any meat, just chicken and fish, but I wasn't eating any red meat or pork for about 8 years. But I did start when I was towards the end of my pregnancy, because my iron continued to drop throughout pregnancy, even though I was supplementing. So I did that, and it brought my iron levels right up. And because I've had the C-section and I've had such a hard recovery with the pain for weeks, I decided to keep eating meat for the time being. I do plan on stopping again. I'm hoping by the new year I can cut down on the red meat again, because it's hard, and it was really hard to stop initially. It took months, and I did it, and it's been 8 years. But now that I'm back on it, it's gonna be hard to stop again. But I do want to stop again. My number one reason for not eating meat is for the animals. I'm just not okay with the way modern farming is going and the treatment of animals. So I've also been getting subscription for, well, it's actually not a subscription, but it is a meat delivery option, and you get to choose the different meats that you want, and they send it all vacuum sealed and individual, and they drop it off at your house. Because it's vacuum sealed, it lasts for a year. I got a big box that's lasting us over a month now, and it's all grass-fed and grass-finished beef from local farms in Ontario. So I will also post that below if you are in Ontario and you're interested. So I browned my meatballs in my hot cast iron skillet. It gives it a beautiful color. And then I moved on to my veggies. For this dinner, I did some broccoli and some yellow beans. So these beans came in the food subscription box I get, the veggie and fruit box. And I don't usually ever buy yellow beans. I usually get green beans. So it's nice getting things that I wouldn't usually buy, and getting to try different things and adding some different variety to our meals. So the way I like making my mashed potatoes now is I cook them till they're nice and soft, and then I just mash them with some butter. If it's a large amount, I'll even use my KitchenAid mixer to mix it all up, and then I just leave it to the side while I'm prepping everything else, and then I will finish it at the end. So you'll see how I finish it, and that way we get some nice creamy and hot mashed potatoes ready to be served when everything else is also ready. Here I'm using again my garlic paste with the herbs, some olive oil and butter, and this is for my yellow beans. So I just like to saute it in this mixture. It just adds a lot of flavor and keeps it nice and al dente, doesn't get overcooked. I hate mushy beans or mushy vegetables in general. And then adding my broccoli over top with a little bit of water to kind of get them steaming. So I'm just gonna cover this and let it cook for a little bit, but not too long, keeping a close eye on it so they don't overcook. Now that my meatballs are all cooked, I'm taking them out of the pan so that I can get started on a gravy. So I'm just adding some flour with a little bit of beef bouillon powder mixed in, just to add a little bit more flavor. Realized it was a little bit dry, so adding some butter to that to start a nice little gravy here. Just whisking everything together, trying to get rid of all the lumps as I go. So I like to just cook that flour mixture for about a minute, just to get rid of any raw flour flavor. And then I'm adding some beef broth. This is just a mixture of better than bouillon beef paste with some warm water. Now my veggies are all cooked, so I'm going to turn off the heat and just leave them to the side until we're ready to serve. So the gravy thickened up pretty quickly once I added the broth and had it on medium heat. So just stirring everything together, make sure there's no lumps in there. And you want to make sure that you're making the gravy in the same pan or pot that you've cooked your meat in, because all the flavor is stuck there. You want to make sure you're scraping all those good bits off of the bottom. I'm adding cream. I don't usually add cream, but because I was going for more of a Swedish style meatballs, I wanted to make it like a creamy type of gravy. So So I'm just adding some 35% cream to that. I'm adding some mushroom powder here. I bought some dried shiitake mushrooms from an Asian store, and I decided to try something. I blended it in my Vitamix until it was a powder, and it's been great. So it just adds a little bit of more umami, like mushroomy flavor to things. So I just keep that on hand. So I'm just seasoning this up, some salt and pepper. And full disclaimer, I've never been to Sweden or had authentic Swedish meatballs, so these may be completely off from the authentic stuff, but I'm just going off of the inspiration I got from the HelloFresh box that I got a few weeks ago. So I added my meatballs back into the cream sauce to keep them warm. And just as I got to this point, I heard my little girl crying. She woke up from her nap, so it was time to go get her. And she is so snuggly. Oh, it's just so wonderful. I am loving this season of life, even though it's different and I have to stop what I'm doing all the time, and I feel like I hardly have time for anything. Showers are definitely a luxury at this point. It's just such a wonderful time, and I'm really soaking it all up. This is a wonderful breastfeeding pillow. I love the support in the back. I almost got those other ones that only go around the front, but this was passed down to us and it's been amazing. Highly recommend if you are looking for a breastfeeding pillow. This one is called my Breast Friend nursing pillow. I'll link it below. I love the back support. It just makes it so much more comfortable when you're feeding for hours every day. I've been enjoying listening to audiobooks while I've been breastfeeding. Sometimes I'll do a real book, but the audiobook is really nice because I don't have to hold anything. It still allows me to hold her properly and to look at her and not to have to also manage holding a book at the same time. So I've been enjoying doing that while I'm feeding, because sometimes I'm feeding for an hour and a half. So this is how I like to finish my mashed potatoes. So now that everything else is ready, I'm just heating up some milk. I'm just using some soy milk here. So I just bring it pretty much to a boil, or almost to a boil, just nice and hot. I added a little bit of black pepper to the milk already. And then I'm gonna add my potatoes, which now, as you can see, has already hardened. And the milk is gonna allow it to heat through evenly and make it nice and smooth and creamy. Adding a little bit more salt at this point. Find that potatoes don't take on seasoning very well, so I like to add a little bit of salt to the water when I'm boiling, and then I finish off with a little bit more once I'm heating it through. So everything was finally done. It was ready to be plated. I like serving the meatballs right over the mashed potatoes, so I serve the mashed potatoes and press it in the middle to almost form a little bowl for it, so it holds some of the gravy there. We love sauce at this house, so I always try to make sure that when I do make a dish that has sauce, that there's plenty of sauce to drizzle over everything. We were really happy with how this dish turned out. My husband's not usually a fan of meatballs and meatloaf, but when I add enough flavor to it, and especially when there's a sauce to go with it, he really enjoys it. So this was definitely a keeper. Well, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.